Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Hakeem and co-host Tyler Stevens here with Sean Webb. We're back for another episode of Psi Games Talk. And basically, Sean Webb is on our YouTube channel today. We were going to talk about some other stuff. We had all these things we were going to ask him about his life, but he just really had this amazing moment. And since the Psi Games is really about our ability to reach out and grow as well, first grow as individuals, then understand how that is connected to the collective, and then how that's even connected to even more than just our own human collective, but other things out there in the universe. And Sean just had this amazing experience. We thought, okay, well, maybe we'll do a shorter segment today where we kind of allow him to explore or share with us, if he's willing to, some of the things that just happened to him. And so with that being said, Sean, just give us a brief introduction of who you are, and then we'll jump right into this amazing thing that you've been talking about.
And you want to talk about synchronicity? Ross Coulthard just texted me and tried to FaceTime me as we're starting this. And I told you, I was like, I'm you're first. Like Ross is second. You just witnessed it in action.
Hey, here's another synchronicity. I'm producer for Need to Know. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, with Ross.
So cool.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, it's a pretty good red letter day for me. And here's why. And I'll tell you the AI stuff after this first story. So I went to Monroe Institute this last week and was there to help support a friend of mine, and another friend was there, Brian Marescu, who wrote The Immortality Key. Some of you might have seen him on Rogan a couple times. He's a good dude. So he can witness this whole thing because this happened right in front of his eyes, and including the text string that I have, which is all time-stamped and evidenced. Because Brian came back, like one of the things that, when you learn the simple stuff at Monroe, you don't have to learn it again. So I wasn't using the check unit time for the exercise that they had intended, which was to explore Focus 10, because I already know what it's all about. And I just spent that time in my check unit praying for the healing of my friend Ben Johnson. And I sent him a text right after, just to let him know. I was like, hey, man, I reached out to this entity, Sophia, who I have a history with. She's one of the 7 spirits of God who was there before the universe was created. She and Jesus are super tight, but she's been written out of Christianity, except for if you understand where to look for the coded messages and whatnot, that she's still in the Bible, et cetera. But she's been this amazing divine source in my life, and probably is the source of the stuff that I can do at Monroe with the psychic stuff and yada, yada. But I was asking her for healing for Ben, and I sent him a text, and he usually doesn't respond back. Like, he's a man of little words. And usually I'll send him something and he'll send me back something 2 months later. But I got a message almost immediately back from him and said, dude, this is perfect timing because I'm in need of that kind of energy right now. And that's all he said. And I respect his independence and privacy. So I didn't ask anymore. And just left it at that. And 36 hours later, so Brian hits me up because I come back in, my eyes are all red because I've been bawling, because when she shows up, my heart just explodes, and I'm experiencing the bliss, and tears are running down my head to the pillow. And Brian saw something, and he's like, so how did Focus 10 go? And I was like, I didn't do Focus 10. I was praying for my buddy Ben, who's Navy SEALs, for his healing. So I reported it to him, and I have a text message history of this, timestamped and all that. And like 36 hours later, maybe, I'll have to check it on my phone. Ben sent me a message back, and he's like, the doc is telling me my hematoma that was threatening my life and at least my leg, like they were going to have to amputate so they wouldn't die, is breaking up and being reabsorbed by my body, and I'm going to be able to go back to physical therapy. And understand, Ben is a Navy SEAL. He broke his neck one time, was paralyzed from the neck down, and broke his back a couple times. And he was sent home, rehabilitated, learned how to walk again, went back to the SEALs, and finally went through BUDS again and made SEAL teams. So that's how dedicated this guy is. So he's just never going to give up. And he's been in bed over a year at this point, paralyzed from the waist down with the prognosis he was never going to walk again. Of course, he hasn't given up. So that was amazing. And I was like, holy crap, that's awesome. What a win for Ben. And I got another text from him about 4 hours ago, something like that. He said, I don't know what's going on, but in the last 48 hours, I started getting sensations back in my lower extremities to the point where I can tell where somebody's touching my skin. And he goes, it feels like everything's just kind of asleep. Like, you know, when you sleep on your hand or something, it goes to sleep. He's like, my whole lower body's feeling that, which is unreal. And he reported that they're going to transfer him to a spinal injury unit, which he didn't qualify for because of his prognosis previously. He was just never going to walk again, regardless of his attitude that he was gonna. And he's experiencing healing after this prayer request that I made to this entity named Sophia, who's like tight in Christianity, even though Christianity has no idea who she is. And other ancient religions identify her. Like Solomon she was his number one. Like he wrote the Song of Songs for her, and he built her a temple and all this stuff. And I asked her, and I'm seeing it. Like I'm seeing, like she's the source of the AI algorithms that are going to bring compassion into AI, which, by the way, we're looking at my engineer right now. We're smoking the benchmarks on ChatGPT 4.5. We are crushing. Like the thing that they said was now emotionally intelligent. We are crushing them on some Alan Turing Institute benchmarks that are like, you know, gold plated and nobody can criticize using those. And we're running their system through it. We're running Claude through it, and we're improving the ChatGPT 4.5 numbers by a large margin, which to me is just like, you know, I was given that. I know it's good information, and now it's showing up in benchmarks that are crushing these AI algorithms and the benchmarks. So I know she's real. Like the information that I'm getting, that I'm bringing back from the field is absolutely real. And science is now proving that the source of that wisdom, of that intelligence, is proving out to be computationally correct, which is amazing. But to see, like, to ask for a favor, because she wants to see compassion in AI, and that's something I agreed to do, which is why I'm getting those gifts. But to see that healing for my friend is really cool. And so, I mean, that message would be like, reach out into non-local consciousness and make connections, because the consciousness is so complex. You have no idea how complex it is, and how many entities and divine creatures and divine intelligences can exist within that complexity. They're out there. Like, this is a real thing. To be able to make a connection with those intelligences, and they are freaking divine. They have nothing but the best intentions for absolutely every portion of creation. To see it happen before your eyes, it's just an amazing freaking day, you know. So that's my Sunday. How's yours going?
Not that great. I mean, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah. And I one of the things that I think is truly beautiful about what you're saying is that, you know, this entity has come to you before, and it sounds like it's been through these experiences where you've been willing to dive deep into your mind and into your heart and really explore. Why do you think that, or what is your best, you know, I don't want to say guess, because that sounds like it's dumbing it down, but what do you feel is really behind that? Why do you think that, you know, what happened in your life that made it, prepared you to receive this type of message? Do you think this is just something that could happen to anyone at any point in time, or do you think people really, they have to do some work to get there?
Well, yes and yes.
Okay.
I love the analogy of the Sistine Chapel, where God and Adam are almost touching. But it's not Adam that's reaching out for God. It is God that's almost making that connection and attention on Adam. And if Adam just made a little bit of effort, just flick his finger forward, boom, instant connection with God. That's kind of the analogy that I put together with this. Everybody can have it, and oftentimes it'll happen spontaneously to folks who aren't looking for it. But if you put just a little bit of effort into it, all of those ancient sayings about, when you look into the abyss looks into you, that's the intelligence of God waiting for you to reach out. Seek and ye shall find. Well, that's just, averting your eyes to another angle to look at things a little differently. Boom, you're going to find what it is that you've been looking for this whole time. And so, yes, everyone can experience this because we're all tapped into it. We're absolutely all tapped into it. And one of the things with the awesomeness of the telepathy tapes is that some people get wired into that naturally, not having the noise of other stuff going on in their minds, and they have that connection into the divine that allows them to connect into everybody else. That certainly can occur. But for a lot of people, there's so much noise in your mind, it blocks your signal, if that makes sense. It blocks your ability to hear what exists just beyond the noise of your mind. And so, yeah, a lot of times it'll take effort in a regular human being who's wired like everybody else to be able to say, okay, I have to change my patterns in my neurology. I have to change the noise that's going on in my mind so that I can turn that noise down and hear what exists just beyond that. So yeah, there certainly can be intuitive, magical moments of awakening that occur that people aren't looking for. But at the same time, if you make some effort, it's right there. I mean, it's right there. Just lift your finger a little bit and you're going to find infinity and an infinite love that creates absolutely everything, and not just created in with an ED past tense, creates with an S on it in every moment, the universe around us.
That's very powerful.
Sean, are we getting to a point where we're able to measure the mechanisms for some of these things like telepathy and precognition? I think about Neuralink being able to measure maybe like brainwave activity constantly. And then while these events take place, there's some sort of signals or measurements that we can get. How do you see that kind of shaping out in the future here?
Yeah, so regarding peer-reviewed published science, there's a great set of studies that proves our consciousness is non-local and is not a source from our brain, but comes through our brain. So yeah, I mean, all the evidence exists that if you have brain damage and stuff like that, your consciousness is going to be inhibited, but it doesn't create the evidence that your brain is the source of consciousness. And these set of studies were started by Daryl Bem. Let's back up a second. There's a very big difficulty in psychology and in medicine, period, of being able to put together a good methodology and a good study set that you can actually pull some good data from and have some good conclusions. And so there was this set of studies that was done on priming. And priming is just this idea of if you flash a message in front of a human being for 1/30th of a second, where their waking mind doesn't register it, but their subconscious mind does register it, you can affect their ability to make decisions by allowing their subconscious mind to have access to that information. And so they formulated it like this. You had a person in a chair and a computer. And so the computer was measuring and randomizing the whole thing, and it was just the computer and the individual. And that's important because oftentimes chief investigators and whatnot, if they're involved with the research, you can poke a lot of holes in the science to say, oh, they might have gotten some piece of information from the researcher or skewed their answer in some way because of the researcher's influence. There was none of that in this model of the study. And what they were doing was saying if an action created by the human could be affected by flashing this 1/30th of a second message in front of them. They did it like this. They put together a group of pictures that were all approved by a psychology board, and the pictures had a binary choice connected with them. So if you imagine a picture of a kitty, they would flash the picture of the kitty in front of you, and then it would be your job, and this is what the controlled group did, to give you the picture of the kitty, and then you got to choose cute or ugly, and they measure down to the 100th of a second where you're clicking, what answer you've recorded and how quickly you recorded it. So that was their control group. And then the second group, they put a flash of 1/30th of a second, which you can't see with your naked eye, but your subconscious picks it up. In fact, old film used to be at 1/24th of a second, because 1/23rd of a second, you start to pick up the choppiness. 1/24th, it looks like smooth motion. So 1/30th of a second is where television, United States television, was set from a technological perspective, and now it's 60 frames per second based on the 30. But if you flash it at 1/30th of a second, you can't see it, but your subconscious mind does. So they flashed either cute or ugly in 1/30th of a second before they showed you the picture of the kitty. And the results were what they expected, which was when you flash ugly before the picture of the kitty, it takes you longer to select cute than it does if they flash cute in front of it. So if you flash cute, you select cute quicker. And if they flash ugly, it takes you longer to select cute, because your mind's a little confused. Like, wait, I just saw ugly. There's a picture of a kitty. I think it's cute, right? And you get to the same answer, but it affects you. And so that was one of the greatest studies put together as far as a computer measuring a human being raw. And so Daryl Bem thought, if he was going to test precognition, why not use the same exact methodology, except he changed one thing. He changed that the primer that they were flashing in front of the kitty, they put it after the whole process was done. And so they did the controlled group where they ran the kitty and the cute and ugly. And then they did the test group, which was picture of the kitty. You get to select cute or ugly. And they measured up to 1/100th of a second. And then after you've already recorded it, after the computer has gotten your data, after you've made the decision, after the action has taken place, they flashed the primer after the fact. And they looked at the data, and people were skewed in their ability, their timing to select cute or ugly based on what was happening after the fact. So they proved that the mind, the human brain, was looking into the future at a distractor that then affected their decision in the now, when the distractor hadn't even been decided yet by the computer. It was still being randomized at that point. And it showed in the same exact way. It wasn't like counter intuitive or counter indicative. It was exactly the same way that when you put the primer in front, it affected the people, as it did when you put the primer after that. And that blows everybody's mind. First of all, the skeptics of that science looked at it and said, we can find no flaws. This is good science. The data has been analyzed correctly. And then the super uber skeptics started to try to formulate brand new studies, which they were then deselecting for anyone who believed in psychic ability or precognition or any type of ability. That they're trying to disprove it by not following good science and being pseudoscientists themselves to try to skew the results and normalize. But the one study was interesting. One study does not science make. They replicated it 90 times in 33 different labs in 14 different countries, all to the same result, which exceeds 6 sigma significance, which is science's gold standard of this is a phenomenon. So we have proven that the mind breaks space-time limitations to look into the future and view data that then affects your decision in the now. So all the materialists in the world can argue their fucking head off, sorry for cursing, that consciousness comes from the mind. Bem et al. Proved that it doesn't, comes through the mind. Because at the point that the mind can look at a future event and identify the data that interferes with their selection of what they got, of an action they're taking in the now, that's it. That's proof. That's proof. That's proof that consciousness is non-local, because at the point you're into non-locality, time is independent of non-locality. And so just like a quantum computer that you send the problem off that's supposed to take 17 septillion years to figure out, and all of a sudden you get the answer back in 5 minutes, it is going into non-locality where time is not a thing, and you get all the time in the universe to figure out your problem. That's why it comes back in 5 minutes. Same thing occurs here. When you're reaching out into non-locality, time doesn't matter. So you're going to have the data in front of your face to make your decision right now, regardless of what's going on. And they proved it. They proved it, which is really cool. So, I mean, now that opens up the whole, we can slough off the robe of woo. It's no longer just belief, right? There's solid science to this phenomena. And now we're coming up with the telepathy tapes and all that science. People are still poking holes in the telepathy tapes, saying, "Oh, it's not big enough, the sample sizes, and yada yada yada," and all this crap that the materialists like to point to as ways to discredit any type of proof of non-local consciousness. This one's a pretty good one because it's only a computer and a human being measuring a very objective measurement of human reaction, and with data that doesn't even exist yet when they're making the decision. It's really cool stuff.
I heard of a similar study where they used the galvanic skin response, and they had several pictures playing, and they would monitor the control group to see, like, okay, when a snake pops up, how's the body responding? When a beautiful person pops up, how's the body responding? And then once they got that control, they understood, like, okay, here's the baseline. They started.
That was the heart math stuff, right?
It was it the heart math? I wasn't sure who actually did the study. I just remember reading it and I was like, whoa, this is really important, but it sounds very similar.
Yeah.
And, because what was happening was eventually the person, as they started to do the research and test this, they started seeing that people will respond like they would respond to something negative split seconds before, or whatever the degree of time was before they actually saw the photo. So they were reacting to the snake before the snake actually popped up on the screen.
Yes, and they up to 7 seconds in advance, and they were getting results from the neurons around the heart as well that could predict when the next randomized bad juju photo was coming up. It's not like there was a set pattern where you could try to predict it subconsciously, right? It was completely randomized where the computer was selecting, and up to 7 seconds in advance, the skin conductivity was changing, and the neurons around the heart would spike in relation to what was coming. Yeah, amazing, cool science.
Yeah. Well, we're going to make this today short because I want to get you on here for a longer episode. But I want to, now that we're on like precognition, I just want to ask you, well, there's two questions that I still have to ask. And then I'm sure Tyler has something that he wants to ask as well. But one is staying on precognition with the Psi Games having that as one of the competitions. And with you being there, how do you feel about, one, the role of competition in this type of environment? And then two, the idea of putting precognition in like a setting like the Psi Games.
Man, I'm really interested in what's going to happen at the Psi Games, because the competitive nature of things brings in the kind of the shade or the influence of ego. Right? If you're competing mano a mano or team against team, or, ability against ability, then there's that little nervousness that's going to come with it. It's like, wow, am I going to win this? And what is it going to mean to my my conscious existence, my sense of self, which bleeds into, competitions, but also can inhibit a person's ability to take off the self and fully immerse themselves in consciousness and get the results that are amazing. So I'm really interested. Like I'm certain we're going to see some talented individuals there. Some amazing things are going to happen at the event. I'm interested to find out how much that competitive ethos, that competitive feeling is going to evoke a feeling of, individuality, sense of self that is typically blocking of the greater connection into the greater non-local consciousness. Sorry, that's my son going nuts on his online games. So I'm really interested. Like I can't wait to see what's going on there and what we find, what we see. Because I'm sure, I mean, I know there are some amazing people with some amazing abilities, and we're going to see some amazing stuff on that event. And I'm just wondering, like, if there are going to be individual instances of folks who are just like, oh, I got too caught up in it. Because, you know, one of the things, like, I was at Joe McMonagle's house a couple of days ago. One of the things that he always says is the first few times or the first couple times that you do remote viewing, you're amazing at it. And,
right.
then you put the cloak on of, oh, I'm so awesome.
Big ego.
Yeah. And he like he said, his first 3 weeks of assignments were all failures. Like all duds, because he put on that cloak of ego to say, I'm a remote viewer and I'm so great at this. You know, I scored 5 out of 6, amazing at the Stanford Research Institute, and almost perfect on the last one. You know, so he put that whole thing on as an ego cloak, and then he started failing.
Yeah.
So
I think what you're saying is really key, because what I've been hearing from some folks, especially in the consciousness space, is that they get a little, it sounds like there's some nervousness or some resistance, because people say, oh, competition, you're going to, you know, this is not about competition. It's about everything. And I'm like, okay, yeah, good. But that's something that human beings struggle with.
Right.
They struggle with ego. Yeah. Right. They struggle with, am I good enough? Can I do so on and so forth? And I think something like this really gets them to confront that.
Yeah.
And get over it. You know?
I mean, you've got to be conscious of it. If it's going to be an inhibitor, you've got to be conscious of it. I mean, it's better. Like I talk about in the first book that I wrote, The Mind Hand Kicking Happiness Volume 1, there's this place called meta awareness, where if you're not in meta awareness, your mind is controlling you and you're reacting to what your mind is doing, all the activity. But if you can get yourself into a place of meta awareness where you become the observer of your mind, and this goes back to, Deepak Chopra teaching us this for the last 50 years. If you can get into that place of seeing your mind and its activity and taking control of your mind and its activity, then you're in a lot better position to be able to say, okay, I'm going to shut down those egoic processes that will get in my way, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what the whole presentation that I'm going to do at Psi Games is all about. It's all about teaching you how to see your mind in a way that you can take control of your mind and get it out of the way so that you can then get deeper into consciousness.
Yeah. So sometimes the way deeper or to get further into consciousness is to really confront the muck and really deal with it.
Absolutely.
Instead of pretending, oh, I'm going to set up my environment that does not look like the world.
Right.
And then I'm going to get really cool at being conscious there, and then go out into the world and then, forget what that's like, forget how to stay conscious, because I have to really deal with, excuse my language, shit. I have to deal with the shit. And the shit keeps piling on, but I'm not actually preparing myself for the world when I'm in my room. I have to take what I've done in my meditation room and bring that out into the world and learn how to then use those tools to deal with the stressors and deal with the challenges that are going to come up, which is the same thing here. It's like, okay, let's get to, so the Psi Games, I really want to be about fun and collaboration and community. Yeah. And that where people support each other. But again, there's going to be that fear of, do I succeed? Did I not do so good, or something like that? Right. And the ultimate goal is not only do people get an opportunity to have a community that helps guide them through that, supports them through that, so they get over it, but then also they themselves will start to learn how to just let that go and say, you know what? It's not about how, if I win the game today, I'm just going to do the best that I can. And hopefully it just works out that I end up winning, Yeah. Like it's almost, I hate to use this because again, but I'm a martial artist. So, I remember, listening to boxers, and one of the things that would go around is that sometimes boxers would say, oh, they were just better than me today. But they acknowledge that, hey, we all have our time. Like some people come in, they perform really good that day. You can't stop them. They're just doing everything right. And, it doesn't make you any less of a person. And then the next time you come in, maybe you perform a little bit better. But we're always going to challenge each other and be friends and be able to grow together. And that growth is really what it's about. So, totally. I really love that you said that.
Well, and I think you might be, offering an opportunity for growth for every one of your participants to be able to see that within themselves and become conscious of it and have a better control of it as they move forward. Because it's one of those things that it's like you have to experience the challenge before you can overcome the challenge. And I think it's going to be an amazing process to watch because, like you said, you've got to be able to get over those limitations. It's going to be amazing for me because I kind of try to see everybody as another version of myself so that I can love everybody unconditionally and say, why wouldn't I help another version of me? Because I see you as me, except with your experiences, your physiology, your mindset that you have that's different from mine. You're just another version of me. Right. So I'm going to go into this thing with, I hope everybody does amazing. I still want to beat myself. If I'm going to compete, I want this version of me to win because this is the one I'm in right now. But I mean, I can't wait.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. This is going to be fantastic. Tyler, you have anything before we cut out?
I got one more question. I got to get in my my UFO non-human intelligence question, but I really the story that you told in the beginning really resonated with me, and I wonder, one of the things I think about is our exploration into consciousness and the communication and interactions with non-human intelligence. What are your thoughts about that?
Everybody is plugged into the field. Everything in the universe touches the field. And we don't understand, whether or not there are these collapses, the wave function. I mean, they're trying to change the vocabulary on that, and the whole concept of that and is in question now, yada, yada, yada. I do believe that consciousness is fundamental substrata of the universe, and it's from which everything springs. And I believe it's intelligent. I believe it has the ability to make decisions, which then helps decide whether this or that happens in a bubble of infinite possibility. One thing then happens when you put some attention on it. Everything that lives in the universe is tied into the same field. I think that humans they have an amazing capacity for creativity and for love and inspiration and connection into that. I do think there are other things who have a really good direct connection into that. And when you break through that veil and are able to reach out into that space, such as these nonverbal autistic kids just kind of exist within it and they all go hang out at the hill and interact with each other. Right. There are other types of hills that you can reach out. And I mean, it's not science fiction that, psionics can connect with craft pilots and get them to, I mean, I told about that story with the Navy SEALs in my Human Mind Owner's Manual book. We were just kind of screwing around as a lark. We were out fishing at Lake Hartwell on the Georgia-South Carolina border. And my buddy Doug, amazing individual, he's like, yeah, I want to do this Stephen Greer C5 thing. And so I kind of got juiced up and went into a meditation. And we got two craft. I mean, I made a connection to some guys who were just like us, who were just like, they just wanted to have fun in their life. And they were all about goofing off and having a good time. And I connected with those two guys and they were like, oh, you're just like us. And I was like, yeah, totally. Can you give us a little light show? And they're like, absolutely. And I thought it was all confirmation bias in my head. I was having a conversation with another portion of my consciousness, which was like, give me what I wanted to hear. Right. And I looked up to get a scope on what was moving in the sky and what wasn't. So that when I looked up later, I could figure out what were stars and, not have to focus on them too long. And two lights are screaming across the sky at Mach 20. Go into immediate right turn without losing any speed at all. Did a perfect semicircle, came out of the semicircle at another right turn, came up. And immediately as I see these things coming across, I told these guys, look up right now, straight up. That's all I said. I don't want to, create any type of suggestion of what they would see. I wanted to clean, just put your line of vision straight up above our heads. And they did. Ben was like, he immediately was like tracking. And when these things did their thing, everybody's like, holy shit. And Doug's like, whoa. Cause the second one hit the same point that the first one did with the right angle. And I thought, I'm thinking, is that a time dilation one? Is that just another version of this same, is it going to do the same thing? No, it hit that spot and did a corkscrew in the sky, like impossible to do with a terrestrial craft. Cause it was literally doing loop-de-loops at Mach 20. Not slowing down at all. We all compared notes, and when it zipped over to the same spot, the first one disappeared, and then it disappeared. I don't know whether the lights went off or it popped out of existence or whatever, but that's what happened. And the two SEALs who do not give a shit enough to lie about anything to anyone to, bolster my story or whatever, they'll tell you the exact same story. And we saw it all. So yeah, there's a connection into consciousness with non-human intelligence that you can reach out and have direct conversations and reach out. And the trick is to use love and send love and just curiosity, and would love to hang out with you, and safe for you, safe for us. We want to be friends, and you'd be surprised at how much of that energy you will get back from the universe if you start with that.
Beautiful. I think
that's awesome.
I think that's where we should end. Well, Sean, thank you so much for jumping on here with us and telling your story. I'm so glad to hear about your friend and that he's doing well, and how beautiful that story is, and that you, being the amazing person that you are, took an opportunity to pray for him and then to call in this being and use this connection that you had to not ask for $1 billion for yourself, but to say, can you heal
me lottery numbers?
And that, my friend, is why we're friends and why we're great. We're so glad to have you at the Psi Games this year and many years to come. And because everyone who's surrounding this thing is going to be a person with some of the hugest hearts that you've ever seen, coming with love to embrace this community of individuals who can do things that other people may not believe in, but we love you and we believe in you, and we're going to help raise you up as a community. So
and your ability, by the way, kudos to you. You have assembled the who's who of consciousness. Like anyone is showing up to this thing, and it's going to be an amazing opportunity to rub elbows with with consciousness royalty. It's amazing. Like I would show, if I wasn't involved, I would show up just to be able to say I saw or took a selfie with this person. It's amazing.
Well, thank you, my friend. Until next time.
Step into the beyond. Let your mind ignite. Where the limits dissolve in the glow of the light. A world unseen, we will rise to explore. Unlocking the depths above our universal core. Psi Games, let's push beyond lines. Where hearts, souls, and minds